Hey everybody, it's time to talk about the SEC because, listen, we have our feet in a waiting pool.
Cheers.
We have beverages of, I'm not going to tell you what name they are, but you can probably guess.
You can put it together. You're smart.
His name is Ryan, my name is Dan, and let's just get into it. To you, what is the story of the SEC season as we sit here comfortably in a backyard?
I'm going to be super homerific. The story to me personally, is Florida under Jim McElwain in his first year. I mean, I don't think the expectations are crazy high. It's not a situation where he has to win 10 games or everybody's going to scream that he's in trouble. But it's more of like an aesthetic thing. Part of the problem Will Muschamp had at Florida was that even in good seasons, watching that offense was so unpleasant for most Gator fans that going to the Sugar Bowl wasn't even enjoyable. So I think if McElwain can, by the end of the season, by like the last month of the season, put an offense out there that you say, this is pretty good, and this can put up
There are pieces, there are moments where like, wow, they put together a drive that made complete sense.
Yes, they're not trying to just slow the game down as much as possible. I think that will be the test for him. Granted, he doesn't have a lot of pieces to work with, but, you know, it's something. It's better than what we had.
If they look cohesive, even if they don't have the talent, if they don't have the plan. To me, it's John Chavis. Right now is the big story because it's affecting two teams at the same time in the SEC West. Texas A&M gets, and mind you, Mark Snyder, not a bad defensive coordinator. A lot of Texas A&M's problems on defense was purely not developing players, misevaluating players, putting them in the wrong position to succeed. But John Chavis, I feel like there's going to be a coherent plan. I feel like they've recruited well enough, and their guys that came in as green freshmen are now sophomores and juniors, the talent. They have Daylon Mack coming in, the highly regarded defensive tackle, Myles Garrett back. So John Chavis, not only is he affecting Texas A&M if they move to that sort of 4-2-5 with all sorts of athletes all over the place, LSU.
Oh, that game's going to be fun.
LSU. Oh, those games are always so weird. LSU now hires Kevin Steele in his place, and LSU is always going to be loaded with defensive talent.
Though.
He's not John Chavis. He was last seen as a coordinator at Clemson in one of the worst defensive showings we've seen. But I'm curious to see how that ripple effect goes through the SEC West and what those defenses look like. To you, who rises up in the conference?
I really like Kentucky. I like what they have done under Mark Stoops. He's recruited super well, and people say, oh, you know, they're still only recruiting, they're like have the 9th best recruiting class in the SEC. I don't really care about that because they've gone from recruiting in the 60s overall to being like in the 30s and the 20s and the low teens. Patrick Towles is coming back. He showed a lot of promise at points during the season last year. They have some interesting options at running back. 5 of their first 6 games are at home. Their defense really faded on them at the end of the season, but they were still, like, they were in the game with Florida. They were in the game with Missouri. This is a team that I think is maybe not ready to make the leap, but is going to, they're going to give somebody a game that they just say, holy hell, what just happened? And Kentucky went out there and whipped us.
SEC East is still at a point of sort of transition. South Carolina does not look anywhere near where they were 2-3 years ago. Florida, of course, restarting transition. Georgia, new quarterback. Vandy. Missouri loses a little bit on defense, so who knows what Kentucky's able to do. Mine right now, it's sort of a riser in Auburn, because I think they're going to ascend to a huge height this season. I really like Jeremy Johnson. I like how healthier they get on defense. I like Will Muschamp coming in. I mean, who wouldn't want Will Muschamp as a defensive coordinator?
Just keep going.
As a defensive coordinator, I apologize. But yes, I think that defense is going to step forward, because at times last year, for a team that talented, they were atrocious, that Auburn defense.
Absolutely.
They were really quite bad. So I think they have, because of the transition everywhere in the West as well, the quarterback, I mean, Kyle Allen looks good. Alabama's going to have a new quarterback. LSU and their quarterback situation and their flux situation, I don't buy a ton of it. So Auburn, I think, is going to be in a great place. I like the running backs, Jovan Robinson and Rock Thomas. I think they're talented all over the place. I like the Tigers. To you, who falls from where they were last year?
South Carolina didn't have a great season last year, but they still went 7-6. And it was kind of a fluky season in that they had a bunch of games they led late and then collapsed. But I don't love the Gamecocks this year. They have a major question mark at quarterback. They've lost a lot of their skill position talent. They have a pretty tough non-conference schedule. They play UNC, Clemson, and UCF, all of which are bowl teams at least. They have to play Georgia, Missouri, and Tennessee on the road. It just feels like this could be the year where you're sort of like, the Steve Spurrier era maybe needs to come to an end.
Yeah, to me it's Mississippi State, who I still think is going to be pretty good. I like Dak Prescott. I like some of the pieces that are still there. They just they lost so much upper class leadership last year. Loved Benardrick McKinney for them. I think Mississippi State in the SEC West, I think some of the breaks that went their way last season, and they were really good last season, but I don't know that they've built up the talented depth and experience to make another run. I think eventually they could reach the point where they're deep enough, but as long as the SEC West is, I think, all $4 million coaches.
They're not sinking back to old Mississippi
State. No, they're not.
But it's probably going to be a step back here.
They can almost assuredly beat pretty much anyone on any given week. I just am less confident at this point.
The consistency of it over the course of the
season. Correct.
Yeah.
Who to you is a player, I would say, under the radar, but somebody who is going to either continue to or make a leap to becoming a great contributor?
Tennessee has a true sophomore tight end named Ethan Wolf. He's 6'5". He's like 250. He has
Sounds like a Michael Mann character.
Yeah, a little bit. He's got very good hands. He's not afraid to block. He had a really good start to the season last year, got injured, kept playing through the injury, but just wasn't as effective. Tennessee, the Volunteers have that tradition of churning out really talented tight ends.
They do.
And I think he could be the next one. I think he has the drive to do it. And just the fact that he got so much experience last year, that's only going to help him going forward, especially when he starts the season fully healthy.
Yeah, and especially for a team like Tennessee, which is in the middle of leaping, it appears, to have those versatile players who can block, who can catch. If it's defensive players who are good against the run and good against the pass. Yes, you can cover up for a lot of deficiencies with guys like Ethan Wolf.
You don't want to be a linebacker who has to cover a 6'5" tight end.
No, absolutely not. To me, my player that's under the radar but probably shouldn't be is sort of a lone bright spot situation. Pharoh Cooper for South Carolina.
So good.
They lose so many players, but he's a 1,000-yard receiver coming back. He's versatile, returning punts, kicks, gets 3 to 5 carries, may even get more this season out of the backfield in special packages. He is so good with the ball, and teams are going to key in on him, and he's one of those guys that you're going to see 2 guys chasing him, but it's going to be with the ball because he finds a way to get open. He finds a way to get a crease. I like Pharoh Cooper a lot. It's also really fun to say his name. Pharoh. I like Pharoh.
That's fine.
What is a game to you that you have circled at this point in the summer?
Early October, Arkansas, Alabama. That was a game last year that was unexpectedly close. And I think maybe at the time we said, well, this is kind of a fluke for both teams. By the end of the season, you could say that was Arkansas starting to put it together.
Right.
That was Alabama showing some weaknesses in the armor.
Yes, it was.
This is also going to be a good test because Arkansas is, even though we didn't list them as our riser, they're certainly a team that people talk about with the way they finished
they almost
last
already
season.
were a riser based on the second half of their 2014.
This is going to be a really good early test to say, is Arkansas at the point where they're ready to punch with the elite of the SEC West, or are they still going to exist in that sort of middle tier where they hang with you for a half and then they get beat?
Yeah, and this is a depth situation for Arkansas because they do lose a good amount of players on that defense that was so good that second half. To me, the game at this point, Auburn hosting Georgia. Mid-November, we're going to have a great idea of both of these teams. Georgia's quarterback situation with Bryce Ramsey and how good he is with a ton of talent around him, albeit a new offensive coordinator. We'll see what that offense looks like. And then Auburn, as I mentioned, they're my riser, bouncing back to see what Jeremy Johnson looks like, to see what that front seven. I just like saying Montravius. That's fun for me.
Yeah.
I also like watching him explode the interior of offensive lines. That's also fun for me. So I think that matchup is going to be particularly good. Jeremy Pruitt in that defense against Gus Malzahn in that offense. I think it's a terrific matchup, especially with how good Georgia on defense looked in their bowl game.
Yeah, definitely should have major implications for both divisions in the SEC at that point.
Absolutely. All right, there's our SEC 2015 preview. We're going to continue to just sort of have fun with our feet in a kiddie pool and drink these kiddie beverages. Thanks for watching. See you soon.